I wish I knew what she was saying. Welcome, everybody, to Noon on Tuesday. I am Gina. I am the Cheese Whiz at Finissimo, and I'm your host today. And I'm so super excited because today we are speaking to what I'd like to call monger-turned-maker, Seana from Bleating Heart Cheese in Sebastopol, Northern California. Welcome, Seana.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Oh my gosh. And remind me, please pronounce your last name for me before I say it wrong.
Doughty.
Doughty. Okay, so Seana Doughty, everybody. And Seana, I'm so glad. Thank you for bearing with us and putting up with us today. We're going to show a picture of her up on the screen right now. Seana, I'm going to start with a little tale, Seana, of when I first met you, is when she worked as a monger in our Del Mar shop. And this was 7, 8 years ago, maybe, Seana? At this point, 9 years ago?
It was, let's see, I started Bleating Heart in June of 2009, and so It must be, that was almost 9 years ago.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Wow,
time
this
flies.
Is
super flies. And this is going to be evident of what can be done in such time when we hear your whole story. But I totally remember you, Seana. Obviously, you loved the cheese. But at that point, you were very also much into the local brewing, Brew Makers Association. Was it called Quaff? Something like that?
Yes. Yeah. My husband and I were members of that organization in San Diego.
And I was always so, you would tell me stories. Oh, we're making this and, all this fermentation and pH and this and that. And it was all, that's something that's just so interesting to me and something that I don't know a lot about. But I just remember even back then, Seana, you were just like, I love this stuff. It's just super interesting. And you're a true little craftsman artisan.
Yeah, we were, like food nerds.
Yeah. Definitely a food nerd. You're the prettiest food nerd I've ever known.
Thank you.
And you can't see it today, but I'm going to tell you that even back then, you were very fond of pink lipstick. And I, in your honor today, am wearing pink lipstick. And I'm wearing a shirt from your creamery about the cheese with the curves, which we're going to get to in a moment as well. But regardless, here you are working as a monger in the shop. And I also remember the day that you kind of said, you know what, Gina, I've decided I'm going to go make some cheese. So take us back to that, Seana. I mean, you know what I feel like? I feel like you are the gal from Legally Blonde that just decided one day she's going to go to Harvard. And I really think that is you.
That is kind of how I thought. I remember, I love that movie, number one. And I do remember that scene very well when her ex-boyfriend says, "You got into Harvard?" And she said, "What? Like it's hard?"
This is you! Because...
And that was kind of how I felt about, I just figured, like, yeah, I can make cheese.
You can make cheese, but this is not like you're amazing. I'm now bowing down right now. But that is really good. So what made you that day to decide, yep, I'm going to go make cheese?
Well, when I started working at Venissimo, became smitten with the cheese. I couldn't, it was fascinating to me that, because in the shop, I think on any given day there were probably over 100 different cheeses, right? I mean,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they were made from a few different types of milk, but yet they're all made from the same basic ingredients. They're all made from milk, and there's some salt, and there's some bacteria, and in most cases some, rennet, a coagulant. And yet they're all so different.
Yeah.
And so that really fascinated me. And so I wanted to learn more, and I started, getting online and researching. And when we would get a new cheese into the shop, I would immediately get on the computer and look up their creamery and see what I could find out about them. And I was just fascinated that, I knew that there must be some science behind this cheese. Everyone always focuses on the art part, the artisan part, and that's certainly important. But obviously there's some science there. There's chemistry, there's microbiology. And, because why else would you have things that are so different when they're made from the same basic ingredients?
Yeah, the same basic.
Really kept.
Okay.
And so on top of that, you can eat it. So
always a good thing.
So I just thought, this is amazing. I have to do this. For me, it was just kind of like, I feel like when I went to work at Venissimo, and I always tell people this because it's true, that was when I really figured out what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I and I've never looked back. As you know, I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, I want to be a cheesemaker, so I'm going to go be a cheesemaker now.
I'm going to go be a cheesemaker. And were you always kind of the nerdy science girl then? A little bit? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually always did really well in science from a very young age. And when I was in college, I actually started out as a pre-med student.
Okay.
And thought that I wanted to go to medical school. So I did take a lot of science classes. And in my former career, I worked at a scientific research institute.
Wow.
My husband is a chemist.
Very good. Very helpful. Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely a lot of affinity for science.
Yeah.
In our household.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you have which is very helpful. So that's a good start, an affinity for the sciences. But then you can't just Google this shit and then say I'm going to go make cheese. You had to do more extensive training than that, right?
You can't just look up a recipe online and you're a cheesemaker and launch a company.
Yeah. So where do you begin with that education?
So I started buying books.
Mm-hmm.
And I had talked to a couple of friends who had dabbled in home cheese making, and so I started off with buying a couple of home cheese making books, and they were very inadequate for me because they didn't go into any detail or any depth. Well, I want to know why. Okay, why am I doing this at this temperature? Why am I using this particular culture? It didn't go into those kinds of details, and I wanted to know more. So I started buying actual dairy science textbooks, like if I had decided to go to graduate school and get a degree in dairy science or something related, I started buying books that would have been part of the curriculum, like I would have had to buy if I got to school. Mm-hmm. And I have, a nice library of those now. They're very expensive.
Yeah.
Textbooks are. But they're giving me more of the answers I was looking for and going into things in great detail. Sometimes a little, more detail than I really wanted.
Right, like
But that really captivated me. And also concurrently, I was also traveling around and starting to visit creameries. Yeah. So after I left Benissimo, I don't know if you remember this, but in the spring of 2009, I went and spent 2 weeks in France. I took my best friends and we drove around and visited creameries. We spent a lot of time in the Pyrenees near the French-Spanish border, where they make a lot of sheep milk cheese, and also Radi is from there, and all kinds of other local cheeses that never get exported to this country.
And at that point, did you know what you wanted to make, or this was part of your journey to discover?
So at that point, by the time I left Benissimo, I knew that I wanted to make cheese, in particular that I wanted to make sheep milk cheese. That was how I started out, and I was very naive because I didn't realize how.
Right.
So even though you can order sheep cheese if you're a retailer, you know that you can order sheep cheese from Italy or Spain or France or various places in the United States. So not so much, but at that level, the monger level, the retailer level, I don't know how much thought really goes into, wow, this cheese is, must be much harder to make than this other cheese because this milk is so hard to come by. And because I didn't think of that. I just figured okay, we order sheep cheeses from distributors. They come in here, we sell them, and they happen to be my favorite, and so that's what I'm going to do. I want to make more, sheep cheese.
Sheep cheese.
And
great.
Had no clue
what you were getting into.
What I was getting into and how hard it would be to find the milk and to have a consistent milk supply. It's been very difficult.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. I had no idea how hard it would be.
Yeah, crazy. And but it was something that you wanted, so you knew you didn't know how hard it was going to be, but you decided to buy sheep regardless. You knew you had to buy sheep regardless.
That was
you weren't going to just order sheep milk.
That was another Legally Blonde type moment where I was just like, okay. So I had started Bleating Heart in June of 2009, and I had rented a local creamery that had just started up, and they happened to be a sheep dairy.
Okay.
And I was able to get milk from them. But by the end of that season, they were taking off, having success with their cheese also, and so they couldn't sell me milk anymore. And so I thought, okay,
all right.
Well, there's no dairies, there's no sheep dairies around here that are selling milk. There were only, I think, 4 or 5 sheep dairies at that time in California, and they all used their own milk for their own products. So I thought, okay, so I had a choice. I thought, okay, I can either not make sheep cheese anymore, or I could maybe get some sheep. And
Yeah.
so,
So?
that's what I decided to do. So I just thought, like, yeah, okay, well, I'll just get some sheep then.
I
Um,
just, that's not like picking up, I'll just go get, a new car or a new, like, I
again,
just,
like, this is nobody should do this. Nobody should do what I did.
nobody should. This is your advice to aspiring cheesemakers.
No,
Don't do it this way.
And I mean, when I think back, at the time, it seemed totally normal to me.
Yeah.
Like, it just seems normal. Okay, if you need sheep milk and nobody will sell you any who already has sheep, then you just need to buy some sheep.
Sure.
And so it seems like a normal, logical thing,
Yeah.
even though it is ridiculous.
I gotta say, though, yep, makes sense.
Because, mind you, I did not have a farm. We rent a little house in Sebastopol.
Yeah.
And, it's on an orchard, and our landlord lives next door to us. And there are 6 acres of apple trees. But it's not a farm. It's not a proper farm. It's not set up for livestock or anything. And so I went to my land. I printed out pictures of dairy sheep and made like a little brochure. And I went to my landlord, knocked on the door, and I said, I need to talk to you about something.
Yeah.
And I gave them this. I basically made my own brochure for why it would be a good idea to have dairy sheep on the property.
That's
and
awesome.
So I gave them that. And I told them that it would be temporary, that I was going to buy some dairy sheep, and that I was going to put up some portable electric fencing because I had gone online and researched it. And that the sheep were going to live there until I found a more permanent home for them.
Right.
And so I totally sold them on it, and they agreed.
Did. That's awesome.
And they said, okay. And so then I managed to find a dairy farmer in Wisconsin, at a sheep dairy in Wisconsin, that was willing to sell me 10 pregnant ewes. The ewe was female sheep. Because they had to be pregnant. That's the key.
Of
you can't
course.
Just milk any animal. I mean, they have to be lactating, right?
Which people wouldn't know, right?
Yeah. And so in order to lactate and produce milk, first you have to get pregnant. And so I needed pregnant sheep, and I also had to figure out how to get them to California.
Oh,
and so that was so every step along the way, I thought I was making progress, but then I'd read it and like, oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah, okay. How do you transport?
I can't just shove them in the car. I can't. Yeah.
So,
and was it by plane, by boat, by car? What did you end up doing?
So we ended up, I had my husband help me, and God, bless him. He is such an amazing man and so supportive, because he should have, I think anybody else would have said, like, girl, you're crazy. You need to just stop now.
Right.
But no, he was
That's
totally
so great.
supportive, and so he helped me, and we went on Craigslist, and we found a truck, a 4-wheel drive truck that had a camper shell on it. And so we went and looked at it, and we did the calculations with the tape measure, and we figured we could probably fit 10 sheep in the back of this truck.
Oh my gosh.
And so we bought this truck, and I took a picture and wrote down the dimensions and sent it to the dairy farmer in Wisconsin, and he built a pen that was the same dimensions and put the 10 ewes that he was going to sell me in the pen to make sure that they would fit.
Oh my God.
So then I set up, and so I did. I got the truck, and then in December, that was December of 2009, I drove from the Bay Area to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And picked with my sister. I had my sister come along for the ride, and we picked up these sheep. We arrived at the farm, and the farmer had help there, and they lifted them up one by one into the back of the truck.
I can
and then I turned around and headed back to California with 10 pregnant sheep in the back of my truck.
Shauna, this visual is awesome.
It's all true, and there are pictures on our website.
Oh.
And mind you, I had never driven a truck in my life. I drive a Mini Cooper in real life.
Oh
okay?
my God! And not a truck, definitely with 10 sheep in the back.
No, and this is a 4-wheel drive. I've never driven 4-wheel drive, and it was in the winter, so I knew we were going to having to be driving through like snow and stuff. And we did hit a snowstorm. There was like blowing snow and ice, and going to Wyoming.
Yeah.
And then it was just real. And then the heater broke on the way home, and it was just so nerve wracking.
Oh my!
And my sister and I kept opening the window to the camper shell and just like saying hi to the sheep and talking to them, and oh my God, we didn't know what else to do.
Right.
Thought,
just keep moving forward.
They're livestock. They're not like pets. We were thinking like, maybe they're like dogs. We would talk to them and you'll put them at ease. Well, these are livestock. They're farm animals.
Different.
So
okay.
But yeah, so it was a crazy trip, but I did make it back.
You made it back. Okay, this is a random question, but like, did you have to stop to let him out? Like, you don't just drive for 2 hours.
No. So I had to do research on that too. Like, what do you do when you transport livestock across the country? Because I'm not the first person to do this. No, I don't have the proper rig for it, like, companies that specialize in it. But apparently, depending on the length of the journey, you're actually not supposed to feed them too much or give them too much water, because then they like pee and poop in their confined area, and then you get ammonia buildup, and then it's bad for their lungs.
Okay.
And so I thought, because that was counterintuitive. I thought, we need to make sure there's plenty of food and water for them. But then I thought, no, what am I going to do? Pull up on the side of the freeway and let them out on the side of the
For
road
sure.
so they can go to the bathroom?
To graze and
So my sister and I had to, once the sheep were loaded in Wisconsin, we drove straight through. We only stopped for gas.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we drove straight through.
How long was that?
It was over 30 hours.
Oh, God.
So we drove straight through because I wanted to get the sheep back home as soon as possible. And so we did. We got them back to my house. My little house was about full, and we unloaded them into my backyard, and they lived there for 5 months until they had their babies.
Oh my gosh. I gotta tell you, Sean, if you could just see my face, I think right now I look like that crab in Little Mermaid with my chin on the floor, because that's such a great story.
It's all true, and it's crazy, and no one should do that.
Yeah.
No one. I had no experience. The only animal
Zero.
experience I have is with my two wiener dogs. Okay.
And they're very different. Yes.
They're very different. Yes.
But
so I was not qualified at all.
At all to do this.
Any of it. But again, to me at the time, it seemed totally normal. Like, of course, this is what I'm going to do.
Because you need the milk, right? Yeah.
I need the milk. I need sheep. I'm going to go get some sheep, and they can live in my backyard for a little while until I find proper farmers that they can go live with.
They can live with and take care of. But then, okay, this is all good. They show up at your farm. We don't know really what to do. But then how did you milk them and have the equipment? You don't have all the equipment to do that. How'd you do that? And you have to figure that out?
Well, they were pregnant, and so I knew that I had 5 months to figure this out. Yeah, so they were newly pregnant, and so I had 5 months to figure it out. And during that time, I was networking all over here in the North Bay where I live, trying to find some farmers that would maybe want to partner with me to start a sheep dairy. And so I did. I went through the Sonoma County Farm Bureau, and I made a flyer, and I had a picture of me and my husband and my cheese and the sheep. And so we were looking for partners. Yeah. And that's how I met, at the time, Rex and Carrie Williams, who were also crazy enough. They were already sheep farmers, though. They were legit. Okay. So they were already sheep ranchers. Right. And they had been pondering starting a sheep dairy anyway already. And so when they met me, they thought, okay, this is great because there's already a buyer for the milk. And so I said, okay, we can farm our own business, the three of us. The sheep will move to your property, and then that's where we'll build the milking parlor. And so, I invested more money, and they invested money, and we bought the equipment, and we did. And so that's what happened. And so we did, and that became our dairy became the 5th licensed sheep dairy in California.
In California.
We started milking those. Yeah, and we started milking those sheep in June of 2010.
2010. Yeah. So there were
and all the sheep had their babies, and I did successfully take care of those sheep and feed them. And just so you know, I did those. I don't want anybody freaking out thinking this was like some animal welfare issue, because I pampered those sheep like they were queens.
I'm sure.
I named all of them. I used to go out there and spend time with them every day.
Sheep. Yeah.
So they were queens.
They were queens. That is just really great. So 10 sheep. It starts the whole thing.
10 sheep.
How much cheese could you make with those 10 sheep? So the milk from those 10 sheep.
Hardly
to put in perspective. Yeah. Like everybody kind of, I think, knows what a wheel of Manchego, or we'll get to Fat Bottom Girl, looks like. Say it's a 5-poundish wheel. How much could you make?
10 sheep. It was not enough. It wasn't enough by a long shot.
Okay.
So they were producing it was 5 gallons a day. And then it tapers off during their lactation season. So they ended up trying to milk some of their meat breed sheep. They also were raising sheep for meat. It's a breed called Dorset. But they would produce a few tablespoons of milk.
That's not going to do it, right?
It was ridiculous. No. But they had them there already, and they had some of these Dorset sheep that already happened to have just had lambs, and so they were in milk, and so they figured, why not? Let's just try it. Right. But it was a total waste of time. Yeah. But I did end up managing to buy a little bit of milk from other places, and I did some mixed milk cheeses, but it wasn't enough milk to make very much cheese at all. I mean, a sheep will average maybe half a gallon a day, maybe. and that's only for part of the season.
Half
and then
a gallon a day.
Tapers. Yeah, and then it tapers off from there. That's kind of like that's the best case scenario if you can maintain that average throughout their lactation season.
Sure.
So they produce very little milk. Very
little milk. But it's, do you need as much of it to make the cheese? Is that true with sheep milk? You don't need quite as much volume?
You don't need as much as if you were making cheese from cow or goat. You do get a higher yield because you have more protein and more fat in sheep milk.
Yeah.
In particular, the protein is what's really important for how much cheese you get.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it's true that you do get more cheese per gallon of milk for sheep milk than you would from cow or goat.
Right.
But it still doesn't make up for the fact that sheep produce such little milk.
So little milk. Yeah, I think that's something that people don't realize. It's not all year round, every day, that they're giving you the milk for the product, which is hence and it leads to the why sheep milk cheeses made here especially tend to be very expensive because right?
They're very expensive. I kind of have this saying that I when you see cheese at a cheese shop like Venissimo or anywhere else that sells specialty or artisan cheese, that the more expensive the cheese is, then probably the less money that cheesemaker is making.
Because fascinating.
That's kind of my, because I know when I go and I buy a lot of cheese too, and when I go to cheese counters and I look and I see the more expensive cheeses and I see where it comes from and who makes it, and I know that usually they're a small company, and I know how high the cost of production is, and so I know that people don't just arbitrarily decide to charge a fortune for their cheese because they feel like it. Or,
exactly.
Because
there are costs.
The cost of production is huge.
Yeah.
When you're trying to do something like what we're doing. So it's really tough.
That makes me appreciate your sheep story right there. Appreciate the first wheel of Fat Bottom Girl we ever had. You know what it took to get that.
To ever have Fat Bottom Girl.
Oh my God!
I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that.
Very well.
And I remember shipping. And we're like, how many wheels should we get, and how many can we, sell, and how many do you have? Oh my gosh! Tell us about that cheese though, because that was your first. That's your baby, right?
Yeah, Fat Bottom Girl was my first born cheese, and it was.
Congratulations!
It was that was. So I had been, reading and studying a lot to try to come up with a recipe for, I had a particular style in mind.
Okay.
I didn't, a lot of people tend to do knockoffs of existing European varieties. Like if somebody has sheep milk, they might think, oh, okay, well, I'll make Manchego or I'll make Pecorino Romano. And I didn't want to knock anything off. I was very focused on making an original cheese. And so but I knew that I wanted it to be a firmer cheese, semi-firm cheese, not too hard but not soft, and that I wanted it to be raw milk. Yeah. And so I had a particular format, and I knew I wanted it probably have smaller wheels of cheese as opposed to larger ones. So I had come up with a recipe for the cheese I had in my mind, and started making it at the creamery I was renting at the time. This was the summer of 2009. And very early on, because at this time I had amassed a fair amount of book knowledge, okay, but I had zero hands-on experience with cheese. I had visited creameries, but I hadn't actually made cheese. Yeah. So I really had never made cheese. I was not a home cheese maker. I think one time I made ricotta at home from whole milk, but
that's just wild. Yeah.
So I was not a home cheese maker. I hadn't apprenticed or interned at any cheese companies. I had had like a couple hour visits here and there to various creameries. Yeah. That was it. No hands-on experience. Okay. So I proceeded to making the cheese, and I think it maybe was the first or second batch that I was helping out on this friend's farm where the creamery was located, and so I was flipping. When you make cheese, you go through a process called hooping, which is where you put the curds into the forms, which are called hoops in cheesemaker lingo. And so I had packed them in there, and they were pressing, and you have to take the wheel of cheese out and flip it inside the form periodically. Okay. And so it'll drain properly. So I had taken the cheeses out of their forms called hoops. And rather than put them immediately back in one at a time, which is what you're supposed to do, I took them all out at once. And it was a small batch. There were probably 15 wheels. Okay. But I had taken them all out. And then I realized the time. I looked at the clock, and I had to run out and help the farm manager get ready for milking the sheep in the afternoon. So I left the cheeses on the table, out of their form. Okay. Yeah. Again, being a total newbie, having no experience of actually doing the cheese making. And So was gone for a couple of hours, and then I came back. I, got cleaned up after helping milk the sheep. Came back into the creamery, and as soon as I opened the door, I saw the cheeses sitting on the table, and they had all slumped and fattened because they didn't have the support of their forms anymore, their hoops. And so all of them were fat on the bottom.
Yeah.
And I just saw them, and I immediately started laughing. And I went, oh crap! I immediately.
Dang it.
I immediately knew my mistake, but it made me laugh. I actually thought they looked kind of cool.
Yeah.
To tell you the truth.
They're beautiful.
And so I came in and I thought, okay, let me see if I can squeeze this back into shape, because the curd is still somewhat malleable at that point. It's not for, it's not aged. It's still just young curd, still draining, so it still has some moisture in it. So I tried to squeeze them back, squeeze them. Imagine,
put a girdle on it.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, imagine if you're trying to put a corset on, someone who's fat and make them skinny. It's not
good.
Work very well. So I was trying desperately, squeeze that bottom part of the cheese,
that's hilarious.
And shove it back into the hoop, and it was not happening. It was not going to work. And I decided, okay, this is not going to work. It is what it is. I just had to embrace it.
Embrace it.
And so I had, that was it. Those cheeses were not going back in those forms. No way, no how. It wasn't happening.
No way, Jose.
So
the mistake.
The mistake had been made.
Yes.
The mistake had been made. There was no going back. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to embrace it. These cheeses are going to be asymmetrical, and which is technically would be considered a defect, like in a contest or anything.
Sad.
And so I just said, okay, I'm going to go with it.
Yeah.
But the more that I looked at them, and days went by, and I brined them and aged them like I would normally, I really, really liked them.
Yeah.
And so I decided that because it was such a unique look in it, and also just made me laugh, and it looks different than other cheeses, I decided to keep doing it on purpose.
That's awesome.
And so I had made a few more batches, and I just kept referring to them as the fat bottoms or the big bottoms. And then one day I was making cheese, and I still had an iPod at this time before I had my iPhone for music. And so I had it on shuffle, and I had recently purchased Queen Greatest Hits.
Yep.
And so it happened to come up the song Fat Bottom Girls on shuffle on my iPod. And I just went oh my God, there's about my cheese.
That's it.
Because I just kept calling them the fat bottoms, and of course they're girls because it's girls who lactate and produce milk. And so, in my opinion, cheeses are girls as well. And so I just thought so I just kept referring to them as the fat bottom girls.
That's great.
Was just the song came on, and so
that's destiny.
That was how that happened.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, it is kind of like you could not make that story up.
No.
You could not hire any marketing or advertising agency that could ever come up with anything like that. And it was my total own just lack of experience of actually the hands-on practice of making cheese that led to that mistake, that led to that cheese, and then just serendipity of that song coming on and
destiny.
Yeah. And, yeah, and to this day, it is our most popular cheese, and it's been our most award-winning. We've won the most awards with that cheese, and
that's so great because there's a good lesson in that. Sometimes what you think is the worst thing that could have happened, or oh no, can turn out to be the best thing that ever happened, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really great. It's so distinctive, Seana. Yeah.
Yeah, it was distinctive, and certainly I did have that influence of being a monger of Venetian. I knew that when you have 100 cheeses to choose from, anything that you can have that makes yours stand out, because of course the cheese. The most important thing with the cheese is, does it taste good? Do you want to eat it? That's the most important.
Yep.
However, I do remember very well people coming into the shop, and before they taste anything, they first scan and shop with their eyes.
Yep.
And they look at what does the cheese look like? What is the name of the cheese? And I remembered that every day that I was behind the counter. I remembered that, and so I knew that your cheese has to taste good, but before they get to taste it, there has to be something about your cheese that's going to pique their interest.
Exactly. And visually it does, Seana, tastefully, obviously it does. Super delicious. Fat Bottom Girl, I know we have some because we love it too. It's just awesome.
We can never make enough.
Can never make enough. That's a good problem, though, right? I mean, that was your dream, right? You want to not be sitting on them. You want them to be wanted, right? Yeah. Dream come true.
We've never been able to make enough cheese of that cheese to fill the demand. We've never had enough sheep milk. And it's still a problem.
Still a problem.
Well, even 8 years later.
Yeah, to get that sheep milk. But hence, that is now you have ventured into, of course, cow milk, which is more readily available. But also tell us a little bit about buffalo milk, Seana, because you're into that as well.
Yeah. So I have another crazy friend who decided to start a water buffalo dairy. His creamery and dairy is about 10 miles from my creamery. And he makes a gelato with his milk. It's very delicious because the water buffalo milk is so high in fat, he doesn't have to add cream like you would for making ice cream. Normally you have to add cream to the milk.
Sure.
So
but you
the
don't
water
have to.
buffalo has so much fat, he doesn't have to add cream. So it's just, straight up water buffalo milk and then the other ingredients that go into the different flavors of the gelatos. So what happens is that, like you would imagine in the wintertime, people eat less ice cream and gelato and things like that. And so in the wintertime, he ends up with some excess milk. So a few years ago, he kept begging me about taking some of the excess milk, and I thought, oh my God, I don't have time to figure out how to work with water buffalo milk. At this point, I was already making sheep milk cheese, cow milk cheese, a couple of mixed milk cheeses that are a blend of sheep and goats, and I thought, I don't have time for this. This is nonsense. No, just no.
You never say no.
He persisted. Yeah. And he finally at one point offered to give me just a little bit of milk for free just to experiment with. And so I did. I said, okay, fine. It was hard for me to resist the new challenge.
Sure.
And being that blue cheeses are some of my favorite of all time, I decided that, because I wasn't going to make mozzarella. So that's normally what people do with water buffalo milk. And I have no interest in making mozzarella. I buy mozzarella when it's tomato season, but I don't want to make it.
Sure.
So I decided, okay, I'll try to make a blue cheese to see how it turns out. And I thought it was probably going to totally suck. I had no idea how.
How does this work? But we'll figure it out.
But a few months down the road, I tasted it and I went, oh, okay.
I can do this.
I'm beyond to something.
Yeah.
This might work. And so I decided to, do a couple of real batches. Arranged to buy the milk from him and did a couple of small batches, and the very first batch that I actually made in my creamery, as opposed to the 5 gallons of milk that he gave me where I made it at home.
Okay.
Just for tasting. So the first legitimate batch that I made in my cheese vat in my creamery was I think it was in 2014. This was when this happened. I decided to send it to the World Cheese Awards, just kind of like on a whim, just to see what would happen. And it got a bronze medal.
I mean, that's
so
just.
And I thought that was kind of funny for literally the first batch I ever made of that cheese. I mean, I'm not counting the one that I made on my kitchen stove, but the first real batch in my creamery to get that medal. So I thought, okay, well maybe I should continue this.
Yeah,
and
maybe
so
I'm onto something. Yeah.
And then for that winter I made more, and then so it became kind of like a winter production cheese. And the milk is very tricky. It's very difficult to work with. It's not like any of the other milks that we work with. I didn't have anyone to lean on. Who works with water buffalo milk?
Exactly.
No one has water buffalo milk.
Right.
And so I was really kind of on my own, and I had to, I spent a lot of time trying to find, journal articles and any publications any research that had been done on water buffalo milk, and it was really hard to try to gather information. But really, what it came down to was just the experience of working with the milk and drawing on my experience of working with the other milk, because at this point I had already been making cheese for a few years. So I really finally honed in on, really nailed that recipe, I felt. And the milk is still tricky to work with, and there is definitely seasonal variation, and the cheese does turn out depending on what time depending on what time of year we make it. But
isn't that the beauty of it, though? Yeah.
It is, but it's also challenging because then you wonder, well, wait a minute, why is this wheel that I made in June not as good as the one I made in February? And of course, there's a lot of reasons why. Like grass, for example, we don't have any grass here in June, so there's plenty of grass in February, and so that changes the flavor of the milk and just how the cheese turns out. But the big thing that happened with that cheese, which completely caught me by surprise, and I will never forget, is that in 2016, last year, it ended up becoming coming in second for best in show at the American Cheese Prize.
Yeah, and congratulations on that.
Winning an Oscar.
I mean,
if you're a cheesemaker, that's like winning an Oscar.
That is an Oscar, and you are so Oscar worthy. That was amazing. Congratulations on that. Because
thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong. There was about 2,000 entries last year, isn't that right? Just shy of 2,000 or right around.
There was almost 2,000 entries, yeah.
Get that, everybody. 2,000 entries, and she gets, like, seriously, almost the best in show, which again, hats off to you, Seana. That's crazy. On a cheese you'd never made.
Crazy.
You'd never made buffalo milk before.
Yeah.
Nor blues. I mean, blues is a whole different thing regardless, and then buffalo milk on top of it.
Blue cheese is hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it was crazy. It's crazy. It's a moment I will never forget.
Yeah.
Never thought it would. I mean, of course, every cheesemaker dreams of winning best in show one day. It's just like anybody who works in the movie and television industry wants to win an Emmy or an Oscar.
Yeah. But
I didn't anticipate that it would happen with that cheese. I mean, I knew it was good. I
sure.
knew what I said
it's
good,
delicious.
But there's so many good cheeses. I mean, that competition is super competitive.
Yeah.
It's really, there's a lot of entries and a lot of them are really, really good.
Yeah.
So you just never know. So I was, shocked.
So which one,
in a good way.
Which one of your cheeses is going to win this year? Because that competition's coming up. So tell me, which one?
You know what? You never know. You never know.
Sure.
Because the judges are different every year, and your cheeses are different every year, and so are all of the cheeses from all the other all the other cheesemakers. And so, the cheeses might have a really good season. I can tell you that 2016 season of that Buff Blue, the winter production cheese, was excellent. Those were some of the best batches of cheese I've ever made.
Yeah.
And this season we did, we've already finished our 2017 winter run of that cheese.
Yeah.
And I have already collected the wheels that I'm going to send to you.
Okay.
But I don't think that it's as good as one that I sent in 2016.
Interesting. Okay. So you'll see, but you never know.
So you never know.
Yeah.
We never know. We always do really well in competitions, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah.
Because we don't plan ahead very much for them.
But the cheeses stand on their own. This is why you do so good, Seana. They're so good.
We have a question of how many cheeses is she going to enter?
Pardon, yes, a question popped up, Seana. How many are you going to enter?
This year, we'll probably send 5 or 6, because we make cow cheese, we make sheep cheese, we make water buffalo cheese, and we have a mixed milk cheese. So we are not, so probably 5 or 6 different cheeses.
And if people want to learn more about the ones you have, they can see it on your website, it's just bleatingheart.com, is that right?
Bleatingheart.com, and bleat like the sound that a sheep or goat makes, not bleed.
Yes.
Bleat.
They bleat. BLEATING heart.com.
Correct.
Okay.
So they can, so anyone can go on there and read about our cheeses.
So good.
And we have a new cheese that came out at the tail end of last year. That's our first pasteurized cheese, and it's called Death and Taxes, which is the namesake of the beer that it's washed with. So we'll be entering that this year for the first time. We'll see how it does. It's going to be in a very, very competitive category. The wash grain cheese category is very competitive.
You can do it. I have a feeling.
We'll see. You never know.
You never know.
It did win a gold medal this year in its first contest at the California State Fair.
Congrats.
So
awesome.
Thank you. So, but it's a very different cheese than the other cheeses that we make. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It's pasteurized, it's short aged, it's washed beer. I'm pretty happy with it. It's selling great. Like, it's exceeded my expectations.
That's super.
But you just never know how you're going to do in a competition.
Of course.
We might come home with no ribbons, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
We're going to keep making cheese.
Exactly. It'll be and it's all good, and who knows? Yeah, and which is so awesome. Before we wrap up, Seana, I just want to know, what would you say is just the biggest joy of what you do now, and having gone on this super adventure, and you can definitely call this an adventure, an expedition. I mean, what's been your biggest joy of what you've done?
The biggest joy is that I get to do something that I absolutely love
Mm-hmm.
because I had a different career before this, and I used to make a lot more money and had more stable hours, and had this thing called leisure time, which I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
No,
but,
it's been a while. Yeah, I understand.
But I am filled with joy really every day that I come to the creamery, and I just see the tangible result of my work and everything that I've done. That I've worked, it's because this year, June, is the 8-year anniversary of Bleating Heart. So
8 years. That's fabulous. Congratulations.
So every day it's a joy. Even on days when we have problems,
Mm-hmm.
and we do have problems. Everybody has problems. I don't care what they say.
Sure.
They may not tell you or share it, but they do. There's still, every day is different. I never know what to expect exactly. I know every day I'm coming to the creamery and we're making cheese and taking care of cheese.
Yeah.
But the details that are involved in that vary from day to day.
Yeah.
And so no 2 days are alike. I'm never bored, ever, ever, ever.
Yeah.
And even when we're having difficult days, I'm never bored. I love what I do. And, I have a tangible result of my work right in front of me every day, which is more than I could say when I had a desk job where you just have like piles of papers that like move around from one corner of your desk to another.
Sure.
We pump, a couple 100 gallons of milk into the vat in the morning. And at the end of the day, I have, hundreds of fields of cheese.
That's magic. It's beauty. It's science. It's an inspiration, Seana.
and we get to eat it.
Yes, back to that.
And you get to eat it.
I think we started there. We get to eat this.
Better can it get?
Yeah,
we get to eat it. And it makes people happy.
Yeah.
I make something that makes people happy.
Right. And that I think is where we will end that, because I think you hit that on the head. And Seana, you are an inspiration to me, and I mean to everyone, and I hope that everyone listening is inspired by you as well. Please do check out, the Bleating Heart Facebook page and the website, because you can see about all these cheeses, and then come into the shop because you can, of course, taste any of them. And Seana, love you to pieces. Next time back through Northern California, we will stop by and see you. Best of luck at the American Cheese Society. I'm going to be crossing my fingers for you. And regardless, I'm going to eat what you make, so it's all good. So thank you again. Thank you. We will talk soon, and thanks everyone for tuning in. See you next week.
My pleasure. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you. Ciao.